welcome to the Idaho Bigfoot YouTube channel. Today we are discussing two neat short stories that were shared to me by a couple of viewers of the channel. If you would like to have your story read on the channel, please feel free to email me at idahobigfootchannel@gmail.com. But again, it's idahobigfootchannel@gmail.com, and you can email me there or you can direct message me on Instagram. I prefer it when people message me on Instagram as opposed to Facebook simply because it is a lot easier to navigate. But if Facebook is all you have, that works too. I do apologize right up at the start if my voice sounds weird or if you hear me sniffing at all. I say that merely because I am getting over being sick. I'm definitely doing a lot better. It's been a little bit since I've had any real issues, but I am still getting over it. So I do want to apologize for that. I don't think it will be an issue, but just in case it is, I wanted to get that out of the way. So getting right into things today, the first short story we have is from a gentleman from British Columbia. Let's read his story. I heard it at 1:30 a.m. while tenting on the shore of Pitt Lake, British Columbia. And around 1995, a friend and I canoed the Fraser River from Fort Langley, British Columbia, to the mouth of the Pitt River, then up the Pitt River into Pitt Lake. But because we were young and dumb, we started out around noon, hoping to make it into Pitt Lake before dark. Well, that didn't happen. We made several stops along the way for food and a break from rowing. We finally made it into Pitt Lake and set camp at 1:30 a.m. This is where most people might question things, but I swear to you, this is what time we shut it down. Like I said, we were in great physical shape and we were young. Most of the Pitt Lake shoreline is only accessible by boat, and we were way past the island in the center of the lake. We set camp and crawled in the tent. Not long after, we could hear what sounded like a dude walking in the brush, and then directly approaching our campsite. Under breath, I asked my buddy if he could hear what I was hearing. He said yeah, and the footsteps suddenly stopped. After a minute or two, we could hear whoever was outside cautiously navigate up to the tent. It circled us and paused, then continued on. I knew we were both freaked out because we said nothing. It's not normal for someone to hike at 2 a.m. in the dark. This was another level of dark. There was no moon or any other light source to successfully hike without tripping all over the place. The visitor had no problem coming and going without the use of a flashlight or a headlamp. The next morning we looked around for other people camping anywhere near our campsite. We were alone. There was nothing to see. We canoed to the far end of the lake and found a fellow set up there, but that was it for active campsites. There are cabins here and there on the other side of the lake, but we never went over there. I know what investigated our campsite was on 2 feet, not 4. I'm also a lifelong believer in Sasquatch people. I was raised in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia. This topic isn't new here. Now, one of the things I really like to do whenever I hear of Bigfoot sightings and encounters is I like to look up and see just how many missing people there are in the area. Interestingly enough, according to some sources, there are a good 20 missing people near this location of Pitt Lake, which does not strike me as odd. There's a lot of missing people who disappear naturally. It's not like they're kidnapped or anything. There's plenty of people who, because they're missing, die of natural causes or die from exposure or any number of things. So not all of them are weird, dark, mysterious, you name it, but some of them really strike me as strange. I did a video about Robert Smith from Maine, and that is a missing 411 video I did not that long ago. I recommend you watch it. I will have a link at the end of the video. It's not terribly popular, but it's a really interesting story because this fellow just disappeared off the face of the earth. He was covered in blaze orange, and he had a disability that would not allow him to really get away that far. And scent dogs were called in, nothing was found. And I find that very odd. So again, I will have a link at the end of this video to that video, and I recommend you watch it. But there are a number of interesting missing 411 cases. I will link a couple videos I found to David Politis' YouTube channel. He did a few videos discussing at the end of the videos those missing person cases, which I did not have a chance to watch all of them, so I do not know what they're like. It's been a while since I've really watched his channel on a regular basis. Things get away from you. But anyway, we'll link them down below so you can check them out if you're interested in that. So anyway, it has a lot of missing 411 cases. I may very well try and research them down the road. But British Columbia is rough country, and there's a lot of Bigfoot encounters. This gentleman's being no different. So let's now move on to the second story I have for you today. Alright, so on to the second short story. This fellow I will just nickname Argo. So his story goes as this. Howdy. So it was fall, 1992. I was picking Matsuaki mushrooms up on Skalkaho Pass area between Phillipsburg and Hamilton, Montana. We had a wet August, and there was a decent flush that year. Doesn't happen often. Anyway, I had gone into Phillipsburg that afternoon to sell the few pounds of shrooms I had to a buyer and grab a few supplies. I had always been highly skeptical about Bigfoot, and that night the subject couldn't have been further from my mind. So after getting gas, food, and a few beers, I headed back up the mountain. It's a long drive, and I probably sipped 3 beers or so on my way up. I hooked a left on Sand Basin Road, and continued up about 4 or 5 miles. Sand Basin is a long and fairly wide mountain valley typical for Montana and western Idaho. I was thinking of the next day, where I would hike, what types of places I would find shrooms in, and just getting something to eat and getting to bed knowing the morning would come early and I had my hike cut out for me the next day. I spotted a flat pull-off area on the left and pulled in thinking, good enough. I got my little one-burner stove out and a pot, spoon, and can of something, probably chili. I hadn't been there but a minute, preparing to start cooking. It was full-on dark and the valley was absolutely still. No breeze, nothing. All of a sudden, the god-awfulest scream I had ever heard erupted from the hillside to the east. The volume of it was insane. I instinctively knew that whatever it was big. All the hair on my body stood up, and a chill ran through my body. Fear instantly took hold, which is not my normal response. Curiosity would be my normal. It is hard to describe the sound, but it started out kind of guttural, quickly transcending to a scream so shrill it sounded like a high-pitched whistle that lasted for 3 or 4 seconds, and dropped abruptly to what I could only describe as a man in misery, like Tarzan getting his toenails pulled out or something. It proceeded to do this 4 or 5 times in the course of a minute or so. First time I was thinking, what the hell was that? Second time I was thinking, I'm out. By the last time I heard it, my stuff was back in the rig and I was on my way. I've spent numerous days and nights alone in wilderness areas and I don't scare easily. That thing freaked me out. I drove probably 5 or 6 miles away until I saw a good-sized slash pile alongside the road where I stopped and lit it on fire. I didn't get any dinner that night, but instead sat there with my 12-gauge across my lap, locked and loaded, and drank beer until about 1 a.m., just trying to calm my nerves and reconcile my mind to what the hell had just occurred. As I said, I didn't believe in such things back then, and so the next day I just carried on with my picking. However, that experience set me to wondering, and I've since looked into the subject deeply. Some years later, I came across a website, and they had a list of sightings by state and county. I clicked on Granite County, and there was a report of 2 couples that had a hunting camp set up in Sand Basin. It was within a year of my encounter. These couples reported hearing a terrible wail that sounded much like what I had heard, and a large creature ran through their camp raising a ruckus at 1 a.m. Next day, they said there were huge human-like footprints in the snow. In conclusion, I sometimes doubt what I had actually heard that night. I have searched and listened to every call that everything out there makes, even though I've heard most of them firsthand. I've bugled elk, hunted, fished, trapped, and prospected, picked mushrooms, hiked, camped, and seen critters that most never get the chance to see. There is nothing known that makes a noise like that, and with that volume that reverberates around a valley from hillside to hillside. When I sink into the recesses of my memory and relive that moment, I get a feeling of frustration. What the hell was that? Thanks for your time. Hope you enjoy. P.S. There is additional information that is of interest that I did not include in the original story that adds to the intrigue. When I came across the story online of the 2 couples at Sand Basin, another story was mentioned. It was reported by a man who, with his daughter, I think, was hunting at another location about 50 to 70 miles away as the crow flies from Sand Basin. Just my estimate. The pair reported that it was early elk season and they had parked at the trailhead at the end of the road on Snowbank Creek, just northeast of Lincoln, Montana, and bordering the Scapegoat Wilderness area. They said it was a drizzling, misty morning with limited visibility. They hadn't gone far when they suddenly heard this terrible scream holler that set their hair on end. They said the volume of it was otherworldly. They said it was hard to describe, as the Sand Basin couples had said, and I could immediately relate. It so terrified them that they immediately beat feet back to their rig and left. After all of this, I guess I believe there is something to all of it. Not sure what. I don't care if it's some unknown creature, an interdimensional being, an alien, something straight out of hell, or a linebacker in a monkey suit. I just want the truth. Good luck with your search for the truth. Now, interestingly enough, for Montana, there are quite a few missing person cases as well. There are a couple listed in David Paulides' Missing 411 Montana book. I haven't had a chance to really read the book, but I was looking at the map that came with it, and there are a couple right nearby this Sand Basin area. So I find that very interesting once again. So you guys can check out Missing 411, Can-Am Missing Project's books. He does a really good job. He does show his sources typically, and I've looked into them myself, a few cases, and I haven't seen anything wrong. So I do know there are some differences of opinion on David Paulides, but I haven't really had an issue with him as of yet. But that's just me. So anyway, I thought this was a really neat story. I really appreciate him sending that in to me. I hope it's all right that I read the PS portion of his letter. I thought it was really neat how he added to it, and I greatly appreciate that. He went above and beyond there, and I appreciate that information. I think it will get everyone who watches this, who's interested, to look into it for themselves and kind of do some investigating, which I think is always a good thing to do. Researching is a wonderful thing. You just have to know where to look. BFRO, Bigfoot Mapping Project. I really appreciate both gentlemen sharing their stories with me. If you would like to share your story once again, idahobigfootchannel@gmail.com. Just remember, guys, make sure that they are real stories, okay? If it's a genuine story, it really happened to you, even if it's hard to believe, I do appreciate you sending it to me. Whether or not I share the story on my channel, I'll make that decision. Typically, I think I won't have an issue with that, unless it's something really out there. But most people, I believe, will understand why I'm saying this. Hoaxing a story, pulling on people's legs really doesn't do you any good, and it doesn't do me any good. So I want to make sure that if you send me a story, that it is genuine. That's all I'm really asking for, folks. And if you could try to take a little bit of time to read over it, make sure that you have all the details set and that you kind of proofread it, that would be appreciated. But if not, that's fine. I can always do that. And I can keep you anonymous if you wish. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. If you want to comment your thoughts down below, please do. But remember, keep it civil. Please don't attack anyone. That is really important to me. People trust me enough to send me their stories. Last thing I want is people in the comment section attacking them. Right? If you do not believe that their stories are completely genuine, that's you, but at the end of the day, we really don't know because we weren't there. So just got to take their story for what it is, and that's about it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.